Supervisor.
Madam Chair, first off, there's been some questions that were raised that I'd like to ask the Sheriff about. Sheriff, I've given the issue all due protocol. This is a subject that you invited me to meet with you on more recently. We know this has come up in the past. I think it's been reflected in a cover letter from May 17th that 2 times before this was a proposed panhandling ordinance. Can you explain to us the difference between this and the last times this was brought up? If you wouldn't mind, if you need the help of the legal team, please invite them.
I'm sure Tom has a better answer than I do, but I'll tell you from my perspective, I've never brought this proposal up on any prior occasion. In fact, I refuse to bring up anything that deals with panhandling. I believe that is against the First Amendment. I believe the Ninth Circuit has ruled every ordinance that has ever been tried as a panhandling issue has been thrown out by the Ninth Circuit as a First Amendment issue. Tom, you may know more than I do on that. This is strictly, for me, a public safety issue. It is, we've heard today a lot from both sides. It is emotional, and I feel from both sides of this. But I have to stay my own self on the public safety issue. And when asked, is it safe to be on a median, would you have your 8-year-old son or your 15-year-old daughter or your mom standing on that median as cars zoom by at 50 miles an hour all day? Is that safe? I can't say it's safe. It is not safe. I don't care what anybody argues. It's as to the number of accidents or incidents that have occurred. It's as Supervisor Valadez said on the issue of texting. One life. It's just one life. We don't need that to ever occur. We need to prevent that from occurring. We're not preventing them from selling the newspapers. We're preventing them from selling the newspaper on the median. They can still sell their papers. They can sell them on the corners. They can sell them on the sidewalks. They can sell them where lawful. The median was never a designed purpose for solicitation or for trespassing. Was an issue that I personally, when first confronted with this with the northwest side of town, I looked at it and thought, okay, well, we could do state criminal charges trespassing, but we need notice. I told Supervisor Miller at that meeting I would not support any panhandling ordinance with her. But state criminal trespassing, when I left that meeting, I thought, well, that will do it. That's what the state does. And I went home and I got an earful from my wife because she said, you're criminalizing those people who are out there on the median trying to make a living. And I had to agree with her that we don't want those people in our jail. We don't want to sit there and arrest them because they're trying to do what they can to get by. But we need to figure out a way to deal with that side of it separate from the safety side of it. So for me, I thought, I'm not going to do the trespass. They put the signs up, that's fine, it gives some teeth to it, but more important to me is I need an ordinance so that we can deal with this in a respectful way. I've talked with the other chiefs in the area. All of them say that they've never had a problem with compliance, that they talk to these young men and women out there and tell them, please, you need to move off of this median and stand over here to do your work, and they do so.
Is it a sign similar to this that the other jurisdictions have put up?
Yeah, I think it's a lot larger than
trespassing.
that. Yeah, I think it's a lot larger than that, but yes, that's similar to it, yes.
Madam Chair and Chief Sheriff Nanos, pardon me. Let me just ask you, on the ordinance itself, this is not going to prevent people like Mr. Spear or Mr. Rainier mentioned that will hold campaign signs, whether they're for or against an issue coming on a ballot to your community. This is not going to prevent anyone from holding signs.
As long as they don't do it in the median.
As long as they're not on the median, correct. If there's a reason to be on the median, you're crossing the road, or you're actually doing utility work or something, it again comes to reasonableness when it comes to enforcement. That's always the case. I'm certain my deputies would be reasonable to
reasonable
recognize those things, yes.
understanding of any situation. I do know it costs over $300 for the first day, close to $300 for the first day.
$290 in the first day of booking in my jail, and after that, it's about $85 a day, $90 a day, $2,700 a month. I think I can find a pretty good apartment for $2,700 a month. So I don't want them in my jail. With the use criminal trespass, that makes it a misdemeanor.
Neither do we, and that's one reason I would be supportive, is to know that this is not an ordinance against panhandling. This is an ordinance against being in the median with either yourself, your dog, your daughter, your son, whichever it is that you'd mentioned. And this does not, you would be reasonable in responding to these.
Yes.
They would be warned to get
Yes.
off of camping in the median
Yes.
for any type of sales. I've always supported the sales of the newspapers. That could continue on the side of the road. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, well, the sidewalks are free for use for that, for freedom of speech or whatever. Vending and that, I'm not sure what the licensing permitting on that is, but I would have no objection to them to be able to do that. We just want them off the median where they can be safe on the sides of the road.
Thank you very much for the answers you gave.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I just have a few comments, and it's regarding the comments that I heard earlier. First of all, you know, Sheriff Nanos just said, one life is too many. We've lost 2 up there on the northwest side already. That's too many lives. So, and when we get to this issue with the safety, I thank you for being creative. We've been trying to get this done with the county attorney for 2 years. And thank you for turning it into a no trespassing. We tried to get it done on a safety issue previously, specifically regarding medians. And I appreciate the fact that you got creative, Sheriff Nanos, and figured out a way to get this done.
Well, if I may, Supervisor Miller, this isn't a trespass ordinance, this is a public safety ordinance.
But you're posting no trespassing on the
Well,
median.
that's to give notice that they shouldn't be on the median.
Right, okay. So, and it's like they have in Maricopa on Oracle Road, et cetera, on the state lines. And to address some earlier comments that some folks made about how this is, you know, trying to put the homeless folks out of sight. I think by neglecting them, leaving them out there on the medians, we have been derelict in our duty to get them help. And I've been saying this for the 3 years that I've been involved, and I believe we have been derelict in our duty to get them help. The other thing to say that these residents that are here today are not compassionate for these lives is just offensive to me, because I know a lot of the folks, a lot of you I don't know, but I appreciate your compassion that I've seen, and we've all had many meetings trying to discuss how to solve this. And, you know, we talk about the dignity and the, you know, making sure that we're treating people well. What about the dignity of the folks that live in these neighborhoods? The children, the elderly that are afraid to walk down the street and to cross the street. You heard several folks testify today that they have to go out into the road to push a relative in a wheelchair to get over to Northwest Hospital. I've seen it. I live up there. I don't live in this particular neighborhood, but I've seen these folks having to deal with this. And again, the one life is too many. We've had 2 murders in this neighborhood. And folks that don't live on the northwest side, you know, when I think there's help. We have millions of dollars that come through Pima County and the federal pass-through funds to help. I read just in the paper, there were 14 homes available for veterans in the Arizona Star just about a week ago. There are homes available. I have personally, after one of these meetings where we help with the neighbors, tried to intervene and get these folks help. And one individual, I talked to him for half an hour. I know Nicole Brule Fisher witnessed it. And trying to get him to get help. He had a cell phone. I had the whole protocol with all the phone numbers, gave it to him, and he said, I really don't want to. I don't want to go there. I don't like these places. Maybe we need to get a little more creative on the human services side and figure out what do we do that would make this individual more comfortable in seeking help. And I know the individuals in this neighborhood want to solve the problem of homelessness as well as get their neighborhoods safe for their children and the individuals living there. Someone spoke earlier about the 83-year-old woman who had been cited with fines of $500 a day because someone had been in the wash behind her house. She didn't even know they were there. She can barely get out of her house, and she got this notice in the mail from the Department of Environmental Quality. And I know you, Sheriff Nanos, were going to take action on that, and I hope that those kinds of things don't happen because this was a very, very elderly woman who doesn't even get out of her home. She was very, very distraught. As you might imagine, that she was threatened with $500 a day fines. We need to end that kind of harassment of the residents in that neighborhood. I'd like to see something done about that. You know, and we need to understand that everybody deserves freedom, including the residents in these neighborhoods deserve freedom, and they deserve compassion for what they've been dealing with. And if you haven't seen the pictures of what these people have been cleaning up and having to deal with on their own, I have them. They're absolutely disgusting. Needles, drug addicts, alcoholics, defecation. I've got photos of it. So this is a big deal. And it's a big deal, Sheriff Nanos, and I thank you for having figured out a way that we can at least stop this, because this median, it is a huge safety issue that we've been trying to solve, working with the county attorney, but you've come up with a solution, so I really appreciate it. And with that, I move to approve ordinance number 2016-30 and close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Elias.
I can understand people's fears and concerns, and this is a very difficult issue to deal with. I've been dealing with this, like I said, since I was a little kid, and I've watched it, and it ebbs and flows, and it changes. And I admire the work that Mr. Flagg does over there at Casa Maria, and I appreciate him, and I also appreciate his comments. I appreciate the work that Sheriff Nanos has done on this. But, you know, there's shades of 1070 in all of this for me, in the sense that, in the sense that
Let's be respectful.
the two murders that were described here by my learned colleague from District 1, this ordinance will not stop that from happening. The two have nothing to do with each other. This is not an ordinance that should scare people off, but it is. And I think that's what it's directed at. And I think that's misguided. That's not a good way to legislate. And frankly, like Mr. Huckleberry's memo of December 1, 2015, that was cited by one of the speakers, I believe it was you, Paul, Mr. Paul Lovelace, indicates that there's very little evidence to show a safety nexus with a regulation that would stop people from standing on the corners and asking for money. So, because it just hasn't happened. And it's unfortunate, but maybe we need to look at a soup kitchen up there in the Northwest area. Maybe we need to look at a homeless shelter up there in the Northwest area to help relieve these kind of problems. I think that there's some different kinds of ways of handling this, because frankly, in the last year or so, homeless people have been chased all over this community and out of the downtown area. And I see them in all parts of town, on the far east side. I see them also in the northwest side of town. And I'm sorry that this is disturbing to people. It is. It's disturbing to me too. But we have to have a more comprehensive approach to things. We have to have a better way of dealing with things. And we have to be honest about how we legislate. And that legislation needs to be directed at problems, not at things that skirt around the issue and create another problem for somebody else down the road.
Supervisor, Sheriff.
Madam Chair, Supervisor, and board members. To me,
I've got to ask, because the hearing's been closed. Is it okay if the
I'm
sheriff
sorry.
speaks?
Well, I think it's a little inappropriate, but we've done it more recently, so I'm gonna give Chris that opportunity.
I just want to say to Supervisor Lewis, because we have talked as well,
Right.
this has never been about moving people out of the neighborhoods or anything of that nature. It was, from my perspective, when drafting this ordinance, it was nothing more than removing them from the median to the corners. If they conduct their business on the corners, so be it. If they sell their papers or ask for help on the corners, so be it. But I understand the frustrations of those in that neighborhood who deal with this every day, just as other neighborhoods deal with it. You are absolutely correct. It is all over. It's not just in the northwest side. But when we see them in the large numbers that we see there, on those corners, then we need to do something. Not on the corners, but on those medians, then I think we need to do something about that and get them off the roadway and onto the sidewalk.
Respectfully, I understand that, Chris, and I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Are there any other comments to Supervisor Valdez?
Madam Chair, I've been struggling with this ordinance for, as Chris knows, a while. Obviously, we've heard that this is a panhandling ordinance. And I think we need to be realistic to what it is and what it isn't. Is it a panhandling ordinance? No, it's not. Is it going to get rid of people in medians? It's going to certainly discourage it. But one of my concerns, which I addressed with you, Chris, before, was I don't think that somebody who's selling newspapers should not be able to sell newspapers. In other words, they should be able to continue selling newspapers. And that was a big concern for me. You know, we've heard a lot of a much, much bigger issue here, and it's truthfully an issue. But it really isn't strictly a law enforcement issue, and that is our regional homelessness. And the truth is, Paul, thank you for your comments, and the fact that we have to see people, see them, understand that that's an issue. I don't think this is a microcosm in terms of what we're talking about. What I'd like to offer in terms of staff direction, I'd like to see a report back to this board within the next 3 months of some very realistic approaches, but a holistic approach, whether that includes the Bridges Out of Poverty and what's being done in that venue, or an overall perspective, because I think the truth is that we are hearing that homelessness is an issue, and the truth is it is an issue for our community, but we need to see them, and we need to figure out how do we deal with it instead of going symptom by symptom by symptom, addressing the real issue and really helping our people. So I offer that by way of staff direction, because again, this isn't a panhandling ordinance. Sheriff Nanos is very limited in what he can do as an overall homelessness perspective, to about that much. And for those on camera, that much. But the truth is, what he can do is limited. We need to look at it in such a way that we see our homeless population as ourselves, because they're part of our community, and treat them with that. Also look at how we can help them get through those issues and help them move on and become productive citizens of our community.
Yes.
Because in talking about homelessness and being an issue, yeah, you're right, it's an issue. This isn't the solution.
Yeah.
This is simply a public safety issue that the sheriff can deal with in a very small manner. But I want to hear back from county staff overall and holistically within the next 3 months what we can do in terms of really trying to deal with the problem, not just the symptom.
Madam Chair, I call the question.
Oh, you're calling a question, I'm sorry. My ears are plugged up. The question's been called, roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I'd like to explain my vote, if I may. The ordinances brought before us in the past, as mentioned, were struck down as unconstitutional, a panhandling ordinance. I was never for. I believe that it's important for all of us to realize that the supervisors should defer by not just protocol rules, but by your experience, Sheriff. If this is an ordinance that you feel is going to make the intersection safer and protect the public as far as not just the people who are standing and waving in the intersection, but also those driving, I think we need to acknowledge there's impact on both sides. I'm going to vote yes and support you. I don't believe you're grandstanding on this. You're responding to an important issue that you feel is vital to the public safety, and I'm going to support you. Thank you.
Supervisor Elias.
No,
Supervisor Miller.
Yes.
Supervisor Valdez.
Madam Chair, may I explain my vote?
Proceed.
As I talked about a few moments ago, this is a very small part that has an effect on the population we're talking about, but doesn't really resolve the issue one way or the other. The truth is, as I said before, and I offered as staff direction, we need to see a more realistic report back to this board about what we can realistically do to deal again with the problem instead of just the symptoms, and treat people as they're our neighbors and friends, because that's who they are. They're us. I'm going to go ahead and vote yes on this ordinance, but I want to make sure that it's very clear. I expect to see that report back before this body within the next 3-month time period.
Chair Bronson.
I vote aye. I echo Supervisors Valdez's comments, as well as I can croaking like this. And I was particularly impressed by Judith Blair and her comments. She has been there. She has been homeless. And I agree. I think this really, people don't belong in medians, whether it's on the state highway, on the ramp system, or in the metropolitan area. It is a safety issue, but larger issue is something we all have to come to grips with. So I vote aye. All right, motion carries 4-1.